All right, good morning, class. Today we are going to be talking about mitosis. And mitosis is a scary word, so it just means cellular division. It's how our cells grow and divide, so we as humans can grow and divide. So I'm going to go over some quick learning objectives that we are going to be doing today. So the first one, after this lesson, you guys should be able to diagram the specific steps that are found within mitosis, and then you should also be able to compare each of those steps that are involved with this process. So not only are you going to have to put them in order, but you're also going to have to know the differences and the functions of each step that is involved within cellular division. So before we get into anything too specific, I'm going to have you guys do some bell work. Now you guys can just talk about this in your table group, but what is your prior understanding of what mitosis or cellular division is? So if that's nothing, that's totally okay. But if you do know something, share it with your group so that way we can go into this lesson with some prior understanding of what it is. So I'll give you 30 seconds, talk really quick, and we will come back to it.
So what types of cells grow and develop? I'm pretty sure all types of cells grow and develop.
Good, I like what I'm hearing. Good, that's a start.
So I see there's human growth stem stems from, kind of like just cells in general, kind of like they're just gonna have to replace once they get broken, probably.
Yeah, no, that's great. Do you have anything to say? It's totally okay. We're gonna go over that today. Yeah, so like I said, it's okay if you don't know anything, but we are gonna start going into that. But before we go into anything too crazy, I have a little activity planned for you guys. So I need us to get up out of our seats and let's form like a group right here, you know? Okay, I need 2 volunteers. I know there's 3 of you, but you're volunteer 1, you're volunteer 2. That means you're gonna be a little extra, but okay, ready? So today, you guys are my chromosomes, right? And this area right here is the nucleus of our cell. So we're gonna go through the phases of mitosis. You guys might not know what they are, but then when I am doing the lesson, I can reference what you guys are doing to hopefully make that connection. So our first phase is called interphase. It's oftentimes forgot about, but it's basically like the preparation before mitosis can actually start. So the first actual phase of mitosis is called prophase. So right now I'm going to need you guys to get really close together in the middle. I know it's kind of awkward, kind of weird, I know. So this is called prophase. All of the chromosomes are just coming together, being really close, right? Now let's pretend like this is the midline of a cell, right? I need you guys to line up this way, right down the middle, and like spread your arms across. So like you come right here, like line up, yep, like next to each other. Yep, right down the middle. So this is called metaphase. I like to remember metaphase because it means middle, you know? It's a weird way that our brains are gonna remember it. But if it helps, it helps. Next, I need you guys to split apart, like go to completely opposite ends, right? So the splitting apart of you guys is called anaphase. So when the chromosomes split apart, it basically just means they're being pulled to opposite ends of the cell. And then we have telophase, which starts like forming walls around you guys, or nuclear envelopes. It's kind of a scary word, but it starts forming that around you. And then my good friend Christina is gonna walk right down the middle. Boop, 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 boop. Now what Christina just did, she just divided you guys in 2. So you guys are now, you went from 1 cell to 2 cells. Kind of cool, kind of random, kind of a dorky activity, but I will reference that when we start going further into details about it. So you guys can go ahead and have a seat, and I will start getting into what the cell cycle is. So it's basically just a series of events through which cells pass and they divide and create, and there's 2 different types. There's asexual and sexual. So asexual is of course without like sexual reproduction, and so that's what your somatic cells are gonna do. And then your sexual reproductions of course are what your sex cells do, so your sperm and egg cells, which we will talk further about that tomorrow. Today we're gonna specifically focus on asexual reproduction, known as mitosis. So earlier I referenced interphase, so it's just gonna be consisting of the parts of the cell cycle that don't involve the actual division. So you see this big graph right here, like 85 to 90% of what cell division is the preparation, which is interphase, right? So you're gonna have G1 and G2, and those are very similar. They're just gonna increase the cytoplasm, they're gonna synthesize proteins, and they're gonna produce extra organelles, right? But let's look at this S phase. So DNA is replicated. So a chromosome, which you guys were just acting out in the middle, that's bundled up DNA. And that's what's actually dividing during mitosis. And then once you get further into it, that's when other organelles and proteins start to divide. So really quick, prophase. Basically, your chromosomes are going to condense and they're going to move inside this nuclear envelope right here, right? And so the nuclear membrane is going to be broken down so that way you guys can grow and divide. So that first phase when you guys got really close right here, that's representative of prophase. And it's basically going to form supercoils, which is just when that DNA comes really close together. So that's what you can actually see if we were to look at it like under a microscope, you'd be able to see the condensed chromosomes. And so, after prophase, does anybody remember what's next? It starts with an M. Metaphase, right? So metaphase, I like to think of it as middle, right? They're going to line up on the middle of the cell. And then you have these things at the end of each cell, they're called spindle fibers. And they're going to, basically from each end of the cell, they're going to attach to the chromosomes, right? So now think of you guys down the middle of the cell, you now have like a rope attached to you, right? And from that rope, they're going to be able to pull you to opposite ends of the cell, okay? So the contraction of the microtubule spindle fibers basically cause those sister chromatids to line up across the center, right? And so now that you have this spindle fiber attached to you, what do you think is going to happen next? You're going to be pulled apart, right? And so this is the actual phase called anaphase in which the cells or the chromosomes are pulled apart, and it's basically the contraction of that microtubule, and that's going to split them apart, and they're basically referred to as chromosomes. So I know I've been using those terms lightly, chromosomes and chromatids. Just think of a chromatid as half of a chromosome. So you have two sister chromatids that form one chromosome. I know that's kind of big words, but we can go deeper into the vocab later. The chromosomes are just going to move to the opposite poles of the cell. And then, lastly, during mitosis, you're going to have telophase. So during this phase, you're basically going to start forming those new nuclear envelopes, but rather than forming one, you're going to form two, right? So you have now replicated your DNA in interphase. You've done everything that you need to do to be separated into two, right? And so now you have your microtubule spindle fibers. They're basically going to disappear at this point, and you're going to start forming these walls again. So do you guys remember when you went to opposite ends and I said you were forming new walls? That's representative of your nuclear envelopes, which is just going to form a new nucleus after this process is over. So we've gone over the 4 steps, and I know I said it in the bottom corner, but in your groups, go ahead and discuss what you think is going to happen next. So we've had 2 nuclear envelopes formed, but what do you think is going to happen prior or after this, prior to before? You know. So go ahead and discuss that in your groups. What do you guys think is going to happen next?
Well, it says clue, only the nucleus is divided so far. So I think that maybe the rest of the cell might divide.
Hey, I think Christina's on to something. This is awesome. Okay, so yeah, she's so right. The next phase is the whole cell is going to divide. So this is called cytokinesis. So you see how it went from like a 0 shape to like a figure 8 shape, right? So that's kind of what the cleavage furrow is doing. Well, what the heck is a cleavage furrow? It's just where those 2 cells start to condense, and I basically think of it as like if you have one big ball of Play-Doh and you start to pinch it off, it turns into 2 balls of Play-Doh, right? And so basically the contractile rate is going to form that cleavage furrow, and then you're going to go from everything that you have doubled in one cell, and you're going to split it in half so you have normal amounts in 2 cells, right? So when Christina went down the middle of you guys and she split you guys off, that was representative of like cytokinesis and what that is. So now that we've gone over all 5 steps of mitosis, let's go ahead and put our brains to the test. This is going to be your guys' exit ticket, right? So I need this before you guys can leave the class. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be like roving to answer these. And you don't have to write the questions, just write your 3 answers. So during which stage of mitosis do the chromosomes become visible and condensed? And then if this diagram helps you a little bit, it's just a fun little way to remember it. So you have your interphase right here, right? You have your prophase, your metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and then this right here is representative of cytokinesis. So if that helps you a little bit to answer those questions, I don't know if it does. That's just an easy way for me to remember the steps. And then your second question is going to be, during which stage does the cleavage furrow begin to form? I know we just went over that one, so I hope you guys, yeah. And then the last question is, what is the difference between interphase and mitosis? So this is like all of your mitosis right here, right? This is interphase, this very first step. Go back to that. Yeah, sorry. Do you guys have any questions about
Which one's the
the name of the T
Yeah.
phase? Telophase. Yes. Okay, are we finishing up?
I'm stuck on
You're stuck on 3?
3. Yeah.
Do you have 3? Okay, so we can go ahead and we can just answer them out loud, and then I'll collect them as you guys walk out. So during which stage of mitosis do the chromosomes become visible and condensed? Prophase, right? So that's when you guys were bundled up here in the middle. You can see them under a microscope. It's cool. It's really sciencey, nerdy, kind of fun. During which stage does the cleavage for opening form? Telophase, right? So that'll start to form, and then finally in cytokinesis, that's when it'll split off into 2. Yeah? Awesome. And then what is the difference between interphase and mitosis? Does anybody have an answer for that one? I know it's kind of an open-ended question.
So, sorry. So the interface part is more like a prep.
Right.
It's not. It's the prep before.
Before mitosis?
Mitosis.
Right. Yeah, no, you're totally right. I like to think of it, a good analogy is just that if you're baking a cake, everything you're doing prior to putting that cake in the oven is like interface. It's all of the mixing of ingredients, and then when you pop that cake in the oven, that's the actual division of the cell, right? So that's a good analogy to think of when you're testing. But yeah, that's all we have today, guys. I'll collect those exit tickets, and tomorrow we're going to be learning about meiosis, which is sexual reproduction. But thank you guys so much, and I'll collect those on your way out.